Hello and welcome. My name is Nicole Imgrund and I am the owner of Rivers Edge Counseling Center. Welcome to our webinar this evening called Empowering Parenthood, Navigating the Autism Spectrum with Confidence and Care. I'm going to introduce our facilitator in just a few moments, but I want to give you a little bit of information about what else is happening at Rivers Edge. This talk tonight is part of a series that we've had for, well, 10 years now, actually. We've been around 10 years and we've been holding talks and webinars all through that time. We have almost 100 of them on our website now that are recorded from previous webinars, and you're welcome to watch any of them. This is almost the end of our series for spring, but we do have one coming up June 3rd, I believe, called Standing Up to the OCD Monster. And I also just posted some of our fall topics on the website today too, so you can take a look at what is to come. Also, we have coming up some programming for fall. We're just about to start opening registration for that. One of them, if you've joined this talk today, you'll be particularly interested in. Candace, our facilitator today, is doing a workshop called Strengthening Skills, Strategies, and Supports for Parents of Children on the Autism Spectrum. So that will build out a little bit more on the information and skills that she's going to talk about today. But we have a really diverse set of topics for fall for all of our programs. We have an adult and a child grief program. We have one called The Compassionate Road to Building Self-Esteem, a 6-week group. Getting Through the Tough Stuff, a workshop for supporting children and teens through self-harm and other disclosures. We have one called Embodied Stress Management. We have a men's group, a teen wellness group, a little something for everyone. So I encourage you to check that out on our website. To share with you now a little bit about our presenter, Candace Rockwell. Candace has a bit of an unusual educational and work too background for somebody in therapy now. She has an undergraduate degree in biochemistry, which fostered an interest for her in whole body systems and concepts of regulation and dysregulation, which now inform her practice of counseling as well. She recently completed a master's degree in counseling psychology from Yorkville. Congratulations, Candace. That's such a big milestone. And she is a practicum student at Rivers Edge Counseling. She's been with us since September. She's got a few months left, and then I'm really happy to share with you that she will be staying on soon to be a provisional psychologist with us at Rivers Edge in the fall as well. Candace believes in the essential and transformative power of understanding an individual's unique perspective, and this forms the foundation of her counseling approach, which aims to provide tailored support that resonates with her clients' specific needs. Candace always strives to create a safe and inclusive space where individuals can feel respected, valued, and empowered to embrace their authentic selves. Operating from a holistic perspective, she works to understand the connections between the physical, the mental, and emotional aspects of her clients' lives to provide a well-rounded and collaborative support for them. She draws on evidence-based therapeutic approaches, and she personalizes interventions to empower navigation through life's complexities in a way that is meaningful for each of her clients. We're very fortunate to have her on our team and very fortunate to have her share her experience and expertise with us tonight as well. As you can see, this is a webinar format, so those of you attending don't have access to the camera or mic, but you can make comments in the chat, and I'll keep my eye on that in case there are any technical questions you have along the way. Candace's presentation will take us almost to the top of the hour, but there should be a few minutes for questions at the end as well. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye for now and turn it over to you, Candace. Oh, I want to say one more thing. I always forget the one more. So you're not furiously taking down notes in the presentation because I know she's sharing a lot of good stuff with us. I will post in the next couple of days the video to the website as well as the presentation and the resources. So you'll have that available to you as well. Good.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Well, I welcome everyone, and I really just want to say thank you so much for joining me this evening, and I'm really excited, obviously, to share. It's a massive topic. I've already seen a few things pop up that you know it it is a spectrum in and of itself, and it touches on so many different people, and each of our experiences are so unique and different. And I say that in first person as I am not neurodivergent myself, but I'm a parent of a neurodivergent kiddo. So my youngest child, she is not functionally verbal, and she has autism and also ADHD as well. And so really my direction into this work and what I'm bringing to the table was really inspired. Like I said, bringing my professional experience with my personal journey as a parent. And yeah, I'm hoping tonight that you can find something in here that, like I said, is helpful to you, and yeah, and you can find useful. So I just want to make sure that yeah, we're, like I said, just kind of work with me and come along with me on this journey. So so as it says, I kind of bit off a giant topic here: empowering parenthood. And really, I do hope tonight to leave you, with a sense of a greater sense of how to continue, if you're already on this journey, how to continue navigating the autism spectrum with, like I said, a little more confidence, and certainly with care for yourself and whomever you're taking care of. And so again, general goals tonight were to, just, I want to spend the first kind of few slides here just getting on the same page so that we have a general shared understanding of what, autism spectrum disorder is. And then we're going to get into some emotional supports and resources to support the well-being of your child as well as yourself. And then, at the tail end there, I will also, include some practical strategies with some tips and techniques. For some of you, this will cover ground you already know, but for some of you, perhaps it's the first time you've heard this. So kind of just to make sure we're all operating on the same page, what is autism spectrum disorder? So it's a neurodevelopmental condition that affects how an individual communicates, behaves, and interacts socially. Um, Characteristics that define it include communication challenges, and those can be both verbal and nonverbal. Repetitive behaviors, those can include, as it says, engaging in repetitive actions or rituals. Restricted interests, sometimes hyperfixation or intense focus on specific topics or activities. And also important to consider, so I put it in, is the sensory sensitivities, with individuals sometimes skewing as either over or under reactive to sensory input. So sometimes you may hear a hyposensitive profile or a hypersensitive profile. And so that becomes important, and we'll touch on that. And foundational to today's talk, I just really want to bring into the space the importance of empathy. And so both for yourself, for others, and for your child, and really empathy rooted in a seek to understand the unique experience of each individual. And so certainly your child's unique experience and challenges, as well as yourself as a parent, and those are really foundational, as it says, for compassionate caregiving. Some kind of quick stats. You hear different numbers thrown out. I know the CDC in the States, the numbers are a little bit lower. I've seen, 1 in 35 being reported recently in the United States. With the government of Canada, in October, they reported 1 in 50 is kind of the general diagnosis, 1 in 50 children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder in Canada. And currently they are finding that males are diagnosed 4 times more frequently than females. And I wanted to touch on too, that today's talk, I do have early interventions, diagnosis and interventions on here, but I do broaden the talk out a little bit as well. And we'll get to that, where trying to recognize obviously the various stages, because it differs, if you're dealing with young children and you're on the beginning of that journey, if you're into adolescence, if you're into adulthood, and certainly if you're dealing with a child that has lifelong care needs. So obviously different stages and phases for each of those. This skews pretty low, but they do say that the research is finding that, the autism can be detected as early as 18 months. And they're under the right conditions, there can be diagnosis made as early as age 2. I would say in general, though, that is very much on the low end of things. I would say the general early diagnosis age is more to 3 plus. But according to the ADOS, depending on the child's, if they hit certain milestones or certain developmental milestones, like I said, some diagnoses are successfully made by age 2. And actually, that was my personal journey with my daughter as well. She was very early. And in general, research has shown that early identification and interventions correlate with improved outcomes. So doesn't definitively say what those are, but it does show improvements. Now, impact on parents and families, and this is the piece that I personally found quite lacking in my family's experience. So just kind of, I wanted to touch on, right here, the emotional impact. It is a significant emotional event when your child receives a diagnosis. And many parents, I think, go through a period of adjustment, and that is certainly to be expected. And trying to come to terms with your new reality and the expectations and the realities of where things have shifted and what you're dealing with. And so, feelings of grief, guilt, anxiety certainly can be prevalent. I'm not saying that happens for everyone, but it does happen quite a bit, that emotional impact. Financial impact. It varies in Canada a little bit different with public health care, but even so, for those of you, trying to work through government programming until you can get contracts in place, let's say with FSCD in Alberta, many families and many parents are left trying to bridge the gap. And so, using personal insurance, and trying to cover off, like I said, any of those deficits or any of those additional services. So there's certainly a financial impact with the cost of therapies, any sort of specialized care, medical care, and or education that your child may need. Time and energy. So managing all of that, managing the coordination, the application, the meetings, the appointments, then getting into the therapy and the therapeutic processes, and all the interventions, trying to implement those, on a daily, weekly basis. To say that it's a significant investment in time is, it's an understatement. And I'm going to touch on too, career impact. I can personally attest to that, but, trying to meet the demand sometimes of therapies, when the timings of therapies work and different appointments, it has a strain on a family. You may need to adjust work schedules, or you may need to leave a job altogether, depending if you have other children to care for as well. I mean, there's a multitude of factors that really can make this quite a complex situation to manage. And so, like I said, that obviously even financially impacts family income and career progression for parents themselves. And then social impacts. Families, it can be a very isolating experience due to the demands of caregiving and the challenges of navigating social situations. And so, just broadly speaking, it has just such a massive impact across a parent's life that in many ways is has a sustained impact throughout the parenting journey. there's, not really an end in sight, so to speak. Um, Wanting to touch on as well, again, being respectful in this space, that you will hear and certainly see in this presentation that there's person first language being used. And I just want to acknowledge that I respect that depending on how people choose to phrase. Certainly, I've worked with neurodivergent individuals who prefer, or people with autism who prefer to call themselves autistic individuals, as opposed to individuals with autism. So I just want to bring that into the space that, there can be semantics and terminology. And I really want to encourage people to use what works for you and what feels most respectful, for yourself and for your child, and to honor that with your children as well, because it is a spectrum. And we're all probably sitting in this space with, there's a autism researcher, and who has autism himself, who's autistic, and Dr. Stephen Shore, and many of you may have heard of him. And I saw him speak a number of years ago, and he had one of my favorite quotes. He said, "If you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism." And I think that really speaks to the uniqueness, and recognizing that each individual has unique strengths and challenges. So I have on here, every individual with autism is different and unique. So some may have strong verbal skills, but struggle with social interaction. Others may be nonverbal or not functionally verbal, but excel at visual learning. And I think that the critical thing in here as a parent, and anyone who's supporting individuals on the spectrum, is to recognize and celebrate strengths. And so that really is foundational to my talk tonight as well. I think, following along with some of the great gifts or the great strengths that your child has, and then that can really, like I said, help you. You can kind of use that as a path as well sometimes in helping develop additional skills. And so then getting into, as I said, I do want to touch on, there's different, ages and developmental stages. This is a generalization, but I still do want to speak to it. So, more on the early end of things when we're dealing with children, top of mind is that early intervention piece. And so early signs, including speech delays, difference in eye contact or social engagement, and sometimes those repetitive behaviors. Sometimes you'll see some of that physical stimming showing up at this stage. And as I said, the research says early interventions are very beneficial. Impact on parents. Navigating early diagnosis and interventions can be, and I would say almost most definitely is, overwhelming. And so trying to seek information, coordinate, and navigate your way through this, it's a lot. And again, I just want to acknowledge that. Adolescence. Again, I'm really clumping things together here, but again, just, generally speaking, puberty hits, and that shifts things as well. And it can shift social dynamics and introduce new challenges, obviously. This is certainly a phase in life where you're generally looking at supporting transitions towards more independence and social interactions. It's kind of a hallmark of this stage of life. Impact on parents, even more so than the teenage years, I think, are just stressful in general for any parent. And trying to support that independence and develop that independence with your child can be incredibly difficult to balance, because trying to allow them to take on new responsibilities and give them a little more space, while also trying to protect them and take care of them and keep them safe. And into adults. So, when your child shifts out of school age, I've had many conversations where that is a whole, creates a whole other challenge. And so, depending again on a person's experience on the spectrum, challenges, you may, well, I said shift things, that independence sort of shifts towards that employment, maybe movement towards independent or quasi-independent living. And again, those other social relationships, access to vocational training, and jobs and adult services can help in here as well. And again, I hope you're I'm trying to draw this down the middle, because depending on an individual's functionality, their cognitive capacities, and where they're at. I mean, like I said, that Dr. Stephen Shore, top researcher, like I said, you have and then individuals that may need to be in 24-hour care. So it is very broad. So again, I just want to premise that. Impact again on parents. Supporting an adult with autism can involve, it's a continual advocacy, and advocating for employment opportunities and housing, advocating for programs, trying to find programming, and depending, I mean, we're living I'm in the Edmonton area, I mean, St. Albert, but in the capital region. And so we're fortunate that we do have, hubs and many services physically available. But, when you move outside of the bigger centers, it can be very challenging to try to find, different services and groups and the availability of that. So geographically, there can be a lot of impact on that, just in regards to accessibility and of services. And again, at this stage of the game, as parents age, this is very time consuming and emotionally and financially taxing. And so I just want to, again, acknowledge that. And then, as I touched on, bringing into the space the reality that for some individuals, lifelong supports will be needed, 24-hour care. Some individuals may never live independently. So trying to plan for long-term care and support structures, again, that sort of legacy longevity planning is incredibly important to consider. And that can include legal guardianship and financial planning to ensure your child's well-being. And so that, again, creates additional emotional and financial stress, and requires another level of resourcing and planning that perhaps, in general, as a parent, you think to launch your children into the world in adulthood. And so just planning for not having them necessarily launch independently or as independently as possible, but trying to figure out how to do that while they're supported to the end of their lives in a way that is, in a way that's supportive of all of their needs. So kind of talking about some common challenges, I'm sure many of you here can look at this slide and go, yeah. So right off the bat, levels of support. There's so much variation. Variation in the sense of where your child is at, and also variation in the services that are available. And so, as a parent, impact on parent, you have to continually assess and adjust the level of support needed for your child. And again, very demanding and time consuming, and can be very challenging to sit there, as your child moves through or doesn't move through certain developmental stages. And grief and loss. It's not a singular event. I think grief and loss moves through this process as a parent, in the sense that with every, when you receive the diagnosis, you may have the feelings of grief and loss as a parent, but also throughout the life, anytime there's kind of an event where there's a separation or demarcation from where your hopes and dreams were for your child versus, where things are actually heading, you try to work to reconcile that moment. And so there's a little bit of loss at each one of those junctures, and grief. And so I think, again, it's important to acknowledge the impact on parents, that this happens, and that it can happen continually. And it's important to process these feelings and acknowledge these feelings. And again, talking to friends, sometimes counseling or support groups can be really helpful, just to help kind of normalize and validate this experience. Safety concerns. Elopement, wandering. So legitimately, like, physical safety concerns for your child's well-being. Many individuals with autism are, well, I shouldn't say many, but children with autism, well, individuals can be prone to wandering or elopement. So obviously it leads to safety concerns, and especially when coupled with communication challenges. So parents need to implement safety measures at home and in the community. And so that's an additional level of stress and anxiety that can be a continual presence. on the parenting journey. And I touched on already a little bit around that isolation. So there's impacts, there's social impacts. The demands of caregiving can lead to social isolation for a parent. It can be really difficult to maintain relationships and social activities. And so, again, it becomes really important to try to build a support network and seek out resources that can kind of help to counterbalance this. Other challenges I just, wanted to make sure I touched on sleep. So many children, many individuals with autism spectrum disorder have difficulty falling or staying asleep. So obviously impacting the child, but also impacting the parent. And sleep is critical and can really impair overall health and well-being. And likewise, eating challenges. Some individuals have selective eating, and so really restrictive eating habits or sensory aversions to certain foods. So again, that can really be taxing and stressful and time consuming when it comes to meal planning and trying to ensure, your child is getting what they need. And it requires continual creativity and patience. And then managing transitions, difficulty with change. Children with autism may struggle with transitions and changes in routine. And so that requires, again, the impact on parents, an additional level of planning and to manage transitions carefully. And it really can take quite a bit of extra time and effort. And even then, it doesn't always work out. And then kind of touching on the sensory profiles, regulation and sensory profiles. I really think it's important to understand the role that they can play and in underlying challenges. So sensory sensitivities, as I touched on earlier, individuals can have heightened or diminished sensitivity to sensory input. So they, it can show up as really sensitive with clothing, really sensitive with temperature, really sensitive with light, sounds, or it can go the other direction where they require input. There's not a lot that's kind of tripping their system, so they're seeking sensory input. And so I think, again, the impact on parents is understanding and accommodating these sensory needs is so critical, but can be incredibly challenging. But if you can sort of dial it in a little bit, really helps, is critically important to support your child's comfort and well-being. And then, touching again on the language and communication challenges, communication barriers. Many children with or individuals with autism can struggle with verbal and nonverbal communication. And so some of those social cues, generalization. So generalization being, just going, oh, a smile is a smile, or that your face, you're generally smiling and it kind of looks like last time, so I'm going to say it's smiling, versus taking them as, individual kind of snapshots. And so depending on an individual's ability to generalize, and then, like I said, if they have additional, like maybe motor planning challenges and other situations going on, or fine motor difficulties, it really can create a lot of challenge in and around that communication piece. Impact, needing to understand and then try to learn and implement. First understand your child's communication capacities, and then, like I said, may need to learn and implement alternatives. And so those can include like picture exchange systems or augmentative and alternative communication, so AACs or PECs and different systems like that. So I touched on empathy before. I really do think and I want to take a moment here to really emphasize the importance of fostering empathy for your child and for yourself. So in regards to your child, seek to understand your child's perspective. And I think empathy exercises can be really helpful, where you try to engage in activities that help you see the world through your child's eyes. So, an example could be if your child has a noise sensitivity or uses noise canceling headphones, being in a really busy space and trying to put some on yourself, just trying to explore. You obviously can't walk in their shoes exactly, but it can be really powerful and helpful to try to walk in their shoes, so to speak, and to try to see how things feel, or what works for them, and get your own take on what that does. Observation. I think this is so important, and it seems simple, but it's I just think it really is so important to spend time observing your child's behavior and responses to different situations, just watching, seeing what they do, seeing how they interact, seeing what their physical kind of movements are with different things that are going on in their environment, and seeing how they interact. I think just focusing on observing can really give you quite a bit of insight in understanding your child's perspective. And I really love ask questions. And as a parent of a nonverbal child, I think it's really important to ask questions. And and like I said, accept nonverbal communication responses. And that I just think encouraging your child to express their feelings and thoughts, and whatever that looks like, and then really getting curious about that, getting curious about what they give you, and then getting curious about what you think that means. I mean, you can never really know completely what it means, but you can try to bridge that gap a little bit with that empathy and that empathic kind of perspective. And so, yeah, in regards to kind of fostering that for your children, I think it's important to acknowledge their struggles. I think that's just a basis for humanity, and recognizing the challenges that they face on a daily basis, and how, from sensory overloads to communication difficulties, and just, acknowledging maybe if they feel constantly set apart, just acknowledging that, and the inherent struggle in that. Validate their feelings, show that you understand, or are trying to understand and accept their emotions. And I really wanted to add this part: even when they are difficult or intense, I think validating difficult and intense emotions can be some of the most important things we can do, because it is uncomfortable. But being human can be uncomfortable. And so I think really showing empathy is when we are able to absorb not just the good, but also the difficult, and that's kind of in the human experience. Be patient and supportive. So, as best as possible, offer support and patience as they navigate the world. Now, perspectives as a parent, understanding your perspective as a parent. I think it's really important for parents to ask themselves and really kind of think about, what are your views of disability? I think reflecting on your personal and maybe social or kind of ingrained views, or what you grew up with, or what language or how things were viewed, are really important to at least acknowledge, and spend a moment to get curious about, because it really can impact how we view disability, and it really impacts our parental approach. And sometimes a lot of grief and loss and a lot of complex feelings can be connected to these kind of deeper perspectives, maybe fears, anxieties around our views of disability. And cultural expectations, bringing that into the space. Consider how your cultural norms and expectations may influence your feelings and decisions regarding your child's care. And like, so, kind of just having that self-reflection piece, I think, can be so critical and helpful to understand your position as a parent, and why you feel what you feel and think what you think. And then your parental identity. It does impact your identity as a parent, having a child, any child, and then a child, like I said, I would say with autism. And so I think, again, just acknowledge the fact of, it's worth understanding how your identity as a parent has evolved in the context of raising a child with autism. And so, for many people that are maybe quite a few years, that maybe have a child in adulthood, you can reflect back, and you can really see, and depending on if you're a parent to multiple children, maybe neurodivergent and neurotypical, it can be really, there's a reflection piece as your identity as a parent comes into play there. And then that empathy piece, again, for yourself. So important, but self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you offer your child or your best friend in a tough time. I think it can be such a hard journey, and we feel so much pressure as parents. And so, trying to introduce a bit of kindness into the journey is so important. Acknowledge your efforts, recognize the hard work and the dedication you put into caring for your child. I think, again, just there's sometimes it can feel so daunting and overwhelming, and how important I think it is that we stop and acknowledge, um, yeah, like I said, the continual work and dedication it takes. And then again, seeking support. It's okay to need help. It's okay to seek out. It's okay for you to need help. A lot of times parents are so busy finding help for their children, but they don't spend any time finding help for themselves. So, ways to practice self-compassion. So, nurturing yourself as you care for your child. And I want people to understand I think we've all heard, you can't pour from an empty cup. And it is true, though. You really can't. And so this is based on the work of Dr. Kristen Neff, if some of you have heard of her or not. But she has an extensive experience in self-compassion and a lot of resources. And so I'll be offering those at the end. You can kind of have a peruse through her stuff. But just touching on 3 key points here. Self-kindness, as I kind of touched on, versus self-judgment. So again, try to be gentle and understanding versus harsh and critical. So as a parent, when you're facing parenting challenges, try to replace self-criticism with supportive and caring self-talk. That can be like, oh, I didn't get anything right today, to I did the best I could today with what I had. It's just a simple kind of rephrase. And then the common humanity versus isolation, recognizing that suffering and personal inadequacies can be kind of part of the shared human experience. And, you know, kind of understanding that there are others that may share the struggle or similar struggles, and you're not alone, and you're not the only one facing your difficulty. So, like I said, yes, it's a spectrum. Yes, everybody walks a unique path, but there can be a shared experience in there. And so just kind of understanding that you're not alone can be really important for that self-compassion and mindfulness. And it may be interesting when you see I talk about over-identification. So what I mean by that is mindfulness is just being in the present moment. It's just understanding where you're at. But sometimes, if let's say you're panicked, or you're really anxious, or you're really upset, there's limitations to mindfulness. Sometimes it can kind of make things a little bit worse. And so all this means is, use it as if kind of taking a break and bringing yourself into the present moment, but not in a time that maybe it would make things worse for you. And so it's just about trying to balance your emotions and allowing yourself to feel them, but you don't want to be overwhelmed by them. And so, yeah, kind of staying present. Don't let how you feel define who you are. It's a feeling that you're having. It's not who you are. And so just trying to foster that perspective and sort of let them flow through you with kindness. Acknowledge challenges. Reality check, right? Accepting that parenting a child with autism is uniquely challenging, and that it is okay and to be expected to feel overwhelmed. Embrace imperfections. Understand, I really, this one, please understand that perfection is not the goal. Doing your best is. And celebrate the successes. Small wins matter. Recognize and celebrate small achievements, both yours and your child's. And that might be as simple as your kiddo managed to grab a spoon out of the drawer and sat down to eat their yogurt, or they put their shoes on by themselves, maybe on the wrong feet, but they put their shoes on by themselves at the back door before they went out the door. You know, it's all worth acknowledging. And I think it's really important to acknowledge, because again, a lot of this journey, when you're advocating for resources, it's a deficits-based conversation. So what I mean by that is you are continually trying to prove your child's need for services. And by doing so, you have to focus on all the things they are lacking. when we continually focus on all the deficits of our children, it's overwhelming and negatively overwhelming. So that's where that counterbalance to celebrate small, like success is big and small, and reflecting on progress can be so important. And that's just acknowledging how far you and your child have come, that reflection piece, especially in times when you maybe are feeling pretty low. Just taking the time to reflect on, whew, we've traveled some ground and we're still going. Self-kindness, that positive self-talk, try to replace self-criticism with positive affirmations. Remind yourself of your strengths and successes, right? Try to be like, I'm doing the best I can with what I've got, or I did, even if you're thinking like in the past, be like, I was doing the best I could with what I knew then, right? Because sometimes, when we think in hindsight, we can be pretty judgmental about ourselves, especially depending on, like, let's say our journey on diagnosing our child, or if it took a little bit longer. Um, so I think that positive self-talk and positive affirmations is so important, and gentle treatment. Um, Again, reminder to at times treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer your child, or like I said, someone else in a similar position. And seeking that balance, prioritizing self-care. Again, that you can't pour from an empty cup. Ensure you make time for activities that can replenish your energy and your well-being. And this one too, set realistic goals, create manageable goals for yourself and your child. Avoid the pressure of unrealistic expectations or unrealistic things. You have to consider, if you have a lot on your plate, and let's say you're trying out a new medication or a new strategy, or you're doing like toilet training, it is worth considering when you want to try to take those things on, and try, because it's going to take more time and resourcing. So considering, your bandwidth and how you're working with it is so important, and that's okay. And also your kiddo, let's say you want to start toilet training your kiddo and they come down with a cold, might not be the best time to do it. You might need to just wait. And so I think, again, making things manageable and considering your needs and balancing, especially if you're dealing with, just multiple pressures and expectations, having some of that balance is okay, more than okay, it's critical. So into resilience. Now this is also work on, based on the work of Dr. Lucy Hone, who she is a top researcher in resilience based out of New Zealand. And she also kind of gets into grief and loss work extensively, but she has some really interesting things that I just wanted to touch on. So she's kind of honed down that kind of the cornerstones of resilience are based on three factors. Um, the first, and that's to kind of the shared human experience, is accepting that bad things happen, that life has being human means life's going to have ups and downs, and to understand and accept that, and understanding and recognizing that adversity is part of the human experience, and that we will feel overwhelmed, and then at times we will feel overwhelmed, but the more that we can acknowledge it will help us, like I said, manage them a little bit more. So by accepting the challenges associated with raising a child, parents can reduce feelings of frustration and helplessness. It's like an acceptance piece. And that can really be helpful in reframing your perspective to more of a proactive and solution focused mindset rather than like a deficits mindset. So it can be a really critical shift. I also really like, it's simple, but she says, choose where to focus your attention. She says resilient individuals focus on aspects of life they can control and bring them joy rather than dwelling on negative events. So this practice of gratitude and finding positive elements, even in difficult situations. So it's an active muscle you kind of have to practice and work at, but it's making choices. And the thing that I like about this is there's a level of empowerment here that you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond to it and what you do with it. So that's kind of what this is getting to. So parents can enhance their resilience by shifting their focus to their child's progress, celebrating small victories, and appreciating moments of joy and connection. And then the third pillar she has is, just kind of acknowledging whether your actions are helpful or harmful to yourself. Is what you're doing going to be helpful to you, or is it not? If you're kind of dwelling on something and it's bringing your mood down and you're really kind of sinking, maybe try to step off that track. So she just says, resilient individuals regularly evaluate their behaviors and their thoughts, and they really consider whether they're, again, helpful or harmful. And that self-awareness helps them make a choice about their well-being and their growth. So again, it's not, you can't control what happens to you, but you control what you do with it. So again, as impact on parents, building resilience by reflecting on their responses to stress and challenges. Ensure your actions and attitudes are supportive and nurturing both for yourself as a parent and your child. So some quick strategies here, adaptive coping strategies, problem solving skills, teach and model effective problem solving skills. The really nice thing about some of this is if you implement it for yourself, they can be actionable and you can model it for your child as well. So it's beneficial for you, it can be beneficial for them, and it really can help you together develop these coping strategies. So for stress management, practice stress reducing activities like maybe deep breathing or mindfulness or physical exercise, or maybe it's art, maybe it's music, creating music, listening to music. There's a lot of different things, but just trying to kind of foster all these different kind of adaptive strategies can be really helpful. Again, I keep mentioning it, but finding the joy in the small victories, celebrate those milestones, acknowledge them, no matter how small. Maybe your kid managed to pick something up off their plate with a fork tonight. That can be a milestone. Positive outlook. Again, focus on those positives and help to cultivate that more hopeful perspective. Strengthening social support networks. So, I mean, this can be difficult, but in today's day and age, we also have a lot of online resourcing as well. So that can really help bridge the gap, especially if we're not geographically in as much of a kind of in an urban setting. So connecting with others, build relationships with parents and caregivers who understand your experience. It's helpful, when people just get it. Community resources, look to see what's available out there for both you and your child. And then again, to that independence and fostering independence, you want to help to develop those independent skills that are appropriate for their age and their abilities. So again, those really might decouple from their chronological peers, but still you want to kind of continually think about how to foster, some skill development and some of those independence pieces. Maybe it's their ability to put on socks by themselves. You never know. And empowerment. There's a lot of talk in here about parents advocating, but it is also critically important to help foster self-advocacy and empowerment within your child. And so really nurturing that in the home can even be as simple as honoring the choices your child makes. So maybe it's snack time and you give them an option between a banana and an apple, and they pick the apple and you say, okay, yeah, and just trying to let them have those choices and then following through with those moments can really, it's empowering for them. And it also is independent skill. Creating routines. Many of us might know this in this space, but importance of structure. Consistent routines really help provide a sense of security and predictability, and it's been known to reduce anxiety in general and certainly in individuals with autism. So use visual schedules, keep routines simple, include regular times, consistency in meals, therapy, play, and sleep. Communication techniques, I touched on that, but visual aids. You may want to use pictures, symbols, or written words to communicate schedules, tasks, and choices. And again, depending on your child's capacity to generalize, using different visual aids along with language can help them foster the ability to generalize. So what I mean by that is they see an actual strawberry, they see a picture of a strawberry, they see a cartoon of a strawberry, and they're able to go, those are strawberries. That's generalizing. And so, we can use visual aids and tools to help foster that capacity. Simplified language. Use clear, concise, and direct language, and sometimes break things into simple steps. Speak one step at a time. Don't layer steps. Don't go do this, that. Just go, I would like you to put the fork in the sink. Keep it simple and then build on that. And again, depending on the age and development of your child, adjusting, but just trying to really be cognizant about that, meeting them where they're at. Positive reinforcements. I am a strength-based kind of person, and I really think positive reward systems are so important. So you can create whatever system works for you, but creating a reward to encourage desired behaviors, really trying to, like I said, foster the positive and create more of it. So, and then be consistent with that. So you really want to apply reinforcement consistently to help your child understand the connection. And likewise, consistent consequences. I think all parents can appreciate the challenge in this, but the criticality of it. So setting boundaries, clearly define what is okay behavior and the consequences for not following through. So, I mean, that might be, no, you do have to wear pants when we go out in public and you have to keep your pants on. Yeah. And then being consistent in reinforcing that. Safety measures, I touched on that. Home safety. You may need to obviously scan your home for potentially dangerous items or kind of locations, and also consider alarms on doors and or windows, even internally on your home, maybe your child's room, just to keep them safe and secure in the home. Community safety, teaching your child about safety in public places, and also consider, having an identity tag or bracelet, and also develop a safety plan for outings. That can be so important. Managing transitions, hallmark challenge. So consider, using a favorite toy or an object that can provide comfort, that can really help support, an individual through a transition from one activity to the next or out of a preferred activity. So, and then again, timers and countdowns, using visual or auditory timers can really help prepare a child or any individual for transitions. And like I said, you may need to repeat yourself as well, but just again, being consistent and helping them understand what's coming and what's expected. And then regulation techniques, sensory tools. It can be helpful to manage, or it's essential to kind of, as I said, understand sensory sensitivities. And so you may want to incorporate preferred items, maybe weighted blankets, fidget toys, noise canceling headphones, snacks, just different likable items. And you can kind of keep those on hand. And also use them, like I have calm down strategies here as well within your home. You may want to create a quiet space and, practice some relaxation techniques with your child, and you can do it together as well, some breathing exercises, and it can be really helpful. So kind of the conclusion of all of this is, I know I just threw a lot at you. I was trying to put as many things, but also not be respectful of everyone's time. But I hope everyone in this room or kind of online here tonight can remember you're not alone, and that there is a vast community. The numbers speak for themselves for every one of those children, how many people are loving and surrounding them. And it's a huge community of people, of parents, of caregivers and professionals, and that understand elements of it and are certainly wanting and ready and willing to support you and your child on this journey. And it's a lifelong journey. And then strength and knowledge. I really wholeheartedly personally believe in that understand, with understanding and perseverance. In my house, I might be described more as stubborn, but perseverance, you can make a meaningful difference. You already do make a meaningful difference in your child's life. But that seek to understand, that empathy, and understanding, and really trying to get into their perspective, and then trying to understand, what the impacts are. There's so much strength in that. And it can be so empowering for yourself as a parent, and really foundational for those compassionate pieces. And I'm going to say it again, celebrate the progress, because again, so much of this journey is spent on time, on deficits. We as parents spend so much time talking about what our child can't do, what they need, what they can't do, what their challenges are. It's important and it's critical and it's part of getting supports, but it's heart-wrenching. And so counterbalance it and be mindful to counterbalance it. And when you do have maybe a big meeting coming up, or you do have one of those kind of conversations where you have to run over it yet again and go through all the challenges yet again, I'm all about, planning and kind of sandwich it and think about self-care on, before it, and then self-care coming out of it, and really try to create like a compassionate sandwich for yourself when those events are going to be hard. Celebrate the progress you and your child make, no matter how small, and each step forward is a testament to your resilience and dedication. So with that, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Candace, what a wonderful presentation. There's so much I'm taking from it, but I love that you left us with the was it compassion sandwich? Yeah, nice. Yeah, just for life in general. We have just 5 minutes for questions, but I do want to say goodbye to those of you who aren't able to stay those extra 5 minutes. And thank you for joining us this evening. And I hope you'll join us again sometime soon. Yeah.